The idea of being influential from a stage, and that's really what I like to focus on, is the idea that you can communicate the value of what you do and almost awaken the dormant desire, or really take the audience's desire that they probably already have, but it hasn't been enriched, awakened to a whole nother level, so that by the end of your video, the end of your presentation, they're not only going, wow, this person was really good, like this is really valuable. They're also going, how do I continue this journey with them? Like, what else could I do? I know for me, I've had a few times where I've watched videos on YouTube and right after them, I've gone and bought their course. Like, it was in the show notes and just boom, go and bought their course, because they did it the right way. They added great value, but they also were able to create this innate desire that I already had. It aligned with what I wanted already. And I was the right person for that next step. And so I took it. That for me is the goal.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is one of the most famous books, which also we always recommend resources, is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert, I think Cialdini. And in the very book, he also recommends, like, these are powerful tools that are so essential that a business owner know, that a communicator know, but these also could be used for good or evil. And I think that especially we were inspired to help purpose-driven content creators, business owners, like really make a difference. And sometimes we neglect tools because maybe they've been used poorly. So we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. I see a lot of faith-based people do that. One, I heard this that was very interesting, is not that, I mean, the tool is just neutral in terms of persuasion, but I heard, even thinking about like the David and Goliath story, that ultimately David ended up using, after slaying the giant with a slingshot, this particular tactic, he ended up using the enemy's sword to chop his own head off. Kind of a niche reference, but our community, and there's something about having these tools, but also having that pure heart, that good intent. Of course, we might make mistakes, but like, these are essentials. It's the way, it's also psychology. So I'd love for you to kind of break that down, then, some of the stuff you've learned, because human brains work in a particular way. People make decisions in a particular way. People have certain objections in a particular way. And so even the art of sales, of persuasion, of speaking, coming from an integrous heart with the intent to better the end user, I think a lot of really good people are suffering in their results for the neglect of the learning of the skill set you've developed. So what are some of the things we could learn practically that we could apply to our next video or our next web class, webinar, in regards to persuasion?
Yeah. I mean, I know your audience, and I have a very similar audience, from the sense of they're good at what they do. They have the right heart. They have the right intention. And I think exactly what you said, if you come in and you're just all about heart without the strategies, like you don't have the slingshot, and you come in and you're like, hey, I'm a really good guy. I'm a really good gal. I really care about people, which is the basis for having longevity in this industry. But if you don't have the slingshot, then you're not going to take out the giants in your business. And for me, this is a slingshot. And so let's get into some of those strategies. You talked about the 3 pillars. And for me, when I'm designing a webinar, there are 3 pillars that I like to focus on. And we can chat through one individually as we go through. The first pillar for me is the idea of shifting people's perspective. So what most people do when they build a presentation or a video is they ask themselves, what is something that's really useful or helpful or practical that I can share on my video? Now, that's a nice question. It's a great question. The problem is with that question is that you're probably going to go into your tool set of course content and practical things that you've got. You're going to come and teach it. And the issue with that is, a lot of the time, all that does is overwhelm the audience, because they're actually not ready for it. They're not ready for that level of detail. And the problem with that is it almost like hamstrings their moving forward. So the thing that you have to do first is ask the question, what is wrong with my offer? What is wrong with what I teach? And the reason why I say that is because the first chunk of content, I think, in any highly influential communication piece is addressing resistances or misbeliefs that people have about what you do and what you help people with. I'll give you an example. So one of our signature core programs is called Sell from Stage Academy. Now, there's even an issue with the title of what I do. And the issue with the title is that it teaches selling, right? That's an issue. And the reason why that is because a lot of people have hangups on selling. Now, for me, one of the misbeliefs I have to address is that selling is always or always feels icky or pushy. And so a reframe that I'll share usually in the start of a presentation will be that selling, if done the right way, is the doorway to serving your perfect audience on the next level. So it's actually selling becomes serving when you do it the right way. And so that shift, all of a sudden, it almost like takes a handbrake off people's mindset around the idea of selling. And so they feel more comfortable with it. And so if they end up being the right person for the program, then taking the next step is going to be a lot easier for them. And so the idea here is going, what are the resistances, the misbeliefs, the wrong ways of thinking? So for you with YouTube, it's like asking that idea of what's wrong with YouTube? Like, what are the misbeliefs, misconceptions, the wrong ways that people think about YouTube that I need to kind of release the handbrakes of before I can even get into this useful content? So that's the first pillar.
And I think that's so powerful. And I think what really resonates with me in that regard is that sometimes I think there's the thing that people teach. There's the principles you need to get across. There's the actual tactics you need to implement. There's the things that need to be put into practice. But in some cases, if you were to make like a video or a webinar and just give, if you will, the tip or the tool, the webinar might have been 3 minutes long. Now, some people might say you're fluffing it up, but what you just also revealed is, I think, a missing piece of 99% of business owners, content creators, speakers, coaches, is if you don't overcome the objections, if you don't overcome wrong beliefs, if you don't actually get the heart and the psychology, the person bought in, but they just have the information and the to-do, they wouldn't get results. Because all of us have we have the information, like it's New Year's resolutions, I should probably eat better and exercise more, but it's actually gonna be much more of a psychology, belief system, maybe some different, some bad experiences, some disappointments. So that's just, it's incredibly powerful. You said the first one's to shift their perspective.
Shift their perspective. Do you know what's interesting, Sean? And I know that I've had conversations with you about this, is for me, it was probably about almost 2 years ago, I was like really not liking my relationship with alcohol. This is like COVID time, everyone's probably having a few more drinks than normal. And I was like, I'm just not feeling great. And so I had this desire to want to stop or reduce my alcohol, but I couldn't do it because I had all these misbeliefs about what alcohol was doing for me. And one of them was that alcohol made me more relaxed. That was a big one for me. I was like, so think about, this is an example of a misbelief, right? And so I started really working through my misbeliefs about alcohol. And one of them was it makes me more relaxed. And then I actually looked at the reality of it, and it actually creates stress within the system. And then the next day I'm like twice as stressed. And so it doesn't actually make me more relaxed. And so what was fascinating when I started to shift my misbeliefs, I automatically started to reduce my alcohol. In fact, I didn't have a drop of alcohol for a year and a half. I have an occasional drink now, but it's nothing like it used to be. And it was less about having a desire and more about the misbeliefs that I had. That was the thing that was stopping me. And your audience is the same, is they have these misbeliefs that they have about the area that you can help them with. And you can create as much desire as you want. But if you don't look after those big handbrakes that they've got on, they're not going to move forward. They're putting the accelerator on. They're not going to move forward.
If you enjoyed this podcast and are ready for some deep dive YouTube strategy, just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to my 1 hour on-demand YouTube strategy class. You'll be looking over my shoulder as I share my best tips, and you can watch it on demand right now at thinkmasterclass.com.